In the middle of an army camp in Flonyard, Princess Leo prepares to commence her attack on the gallant lion army. On the other hand, the Princess of Biscari, Melifor, also known as Millie, decides to call upon the powers of a hero to save her people. In the human world, we meet Sink, who is shown to be an enthusiastic student. He has a chat with his friend, Becky, as they go to school, but are being spied on by a dog with mystical knife. Now Sink decides to make use of his athletic powers and jumps around the school building. But in the middle of the session, the dog uses the knife to trigger a portal to the fantasy world. Our hero panics as he reaches Flonyard and sees Millie. She makes her introduction, and then the dog also arrives with her sword. There is no time to explain any details because Millie's enemy has already commenced the attack. Sink and Millie jump on top of her bird beast and rush to the battle zone. Sink is still confused because he doesn't think he has any powers, but Millie says that he's just being modest. As the battle continues, there's a commentary team that's hilariously covering the war, as if it's a sports game. Millie's dog army puts on a spectacular display of power and strength as they fight Leo's cat army. Sink is a little confused by what's going on, because no one is being killed. That's when Millie explains that this is like a competition, and he has been chosen to be her hero. Realizing that he should make the most of this fantasy land, Sink agrees to become Millie's hero, and she takes him on her bird beast for a fun flight into the battle zone. Everyone is amazed by Sink's heroic appearance, and he also seems to have understood the rules of battle. As he begins his attack, the cat army is baffled by his impressive jumping skills. Sink thinks back to all the rules Millie had told him about, and he uses this information to dominate his enemies with ease and grace. While Sink enjoys his new life here, Becky wonders what he's up to in the real world. Our hero continues to impress against Leo's army, so she decides to get serious. We learn that Sink has also been given a powerful ring that allows him to use seal cannons. He unites with his commander Eclair to use their seal cannons on the cat army, and they put on a thrilling display. However, Princess Leo enters the battlefield and uses her power beam to attack the duo. Sink accidentally touches Eclair, and it leads to an awkward situation where she beats him up. The battle wages on, and Leo decides to use her ultimate lion seal cannon to claim victory. Despite this, our hero manages to survive by flying in the air with Eclair. They come together to defeat Leo by taking off her clothes, and she concedes her position. However, Sink accidentally tears off Eclair's clothes, so she attacks him for being careless. Now Sink wants to go home, but is told that a summoned hero can never return to his original land. Flonyard celebrates their victory, and General Roland gives a victorious interview, but Sink is depressed because he can't make it back to Becky. Our hero complains that he was misled by the dog to fall into the portal, but Eclair doesn't care about his problems. She gives him some money to enjoy at the local market, so he goes ahead with it. Eclair explains how the Continental Agreement is used to determine bounties for rewards, but she's a bit surprised to see how clueless Sink is about the rules of her land. They meet the sage Rico, and Sink asks if he is able to get a signal on his phone to contact Becky in the real world. After a lot of effort, Rico is able to get the job done, and Sink calls Becky. He promises to see her soon, but then Rico asks him to give his phone to her so that she can study it. Rico becomes a little creepy in the process. Millie wants to thank Sink for all his efforts, but she doesn't know that Leo's brother, Gull, has an evil plan to take revenge for what happened to his sister. Now, Sink accidentally enters the women's bathing room and catches Millie in a sensitive position. After this awkward encounter, Gull's army invades the palace and kidnaps Millie, so Sink decides to accept the challenge. Our hero wants to act fast, so he asks Eclair for help, but gets kicked for accepting the battle in an official manner. Now Sink, Eclair, and Rico make their way to Leo's castle, while the legendary Lord Dalkin spies on them with her colleague Yuki. Meanwhile, the knight, Godwin, presents himself to Gull as a candidate to fight for him. Now, we see Millie, who's being treated like a proper guest as she bonds with Leo's pet Puma and her cubs. It's time for the battle, so Rico uses her weapons to start proceedings in grand fashion. Then Sink and Eclair begin dominating the other soldiers. Gull makes a formal apology to Millie and promises to make it up to her after he fights Sink. Now Rico gets caught, so she surrenders, and then Godwin dominates against our heroes. That's when Lord Dalkin makes her appearance and saves them. She starts beating up the troops while Yuki saves Riko from her captors. All the girls come together to take control of the situation, and then Dalkin faces off against Godwin. Now Gol finally meets Sync and fights him while Eclair takes on his trio of Mistress warriors. Both sides witness extreme encounters, but Eclair starts to struggle against the trio. Back to Sync and Gol. They both break their swords, so Gol unleashes his ultimate finisher move. He lands a direct hit, but Sync survives even though he gets a minor injury. Regardless, our hero unleashes his own powers and dominates against Gol. Dalkin takes control over Godwin, but then Leo shows up to fight her. They get into a fierce encounter, but it's mostly focused on childish quarrels. Leo eventually wins with a finisher move, but it's only because Dalkin allows her to. An angry Leo now reaches Gol and Sync, berating them both for wasting time. She orders for Millie to be released at once, but doesn't act friendly with anyone. There's no time to waste, as Millie has a concert to perform in 20 minutes. That's when Sync uses his powers to create a turbo glider that rushes them to the scene. Millie is a little nervous about her capabilities as a leader, but our hero reassures her that she is perfect for the job. With a renewed sense of confidence, the princess reaches the concert in time and goes on to give a touching performance. Sync is totally exhausted from all the exercise, but manages to enjoy her voice. The next day, it's time to give everyone their just rewards, and Eclair is shown to enjoy how Millie pets her. A lot of time passes by in the kingdom, and Sync gets used to his new life. One day, Eclair decides to test out Sync's skills, and they get into an impressive show of skills. Eventually, they both break their swords, and Eclair feels a chill down her spine. However, our hero acts calm and pats her on the forehead. This angers Eclair, so she beats him up mercilessly. Later, Sync spends some time with Dalkin and Yuki, but is reminded that he still needs to find a way back home. Back at the real world, Becky starts to feel restless because she hasn't heard from Sync in a while. At the fantasy world, Dalkin takes Sync to meet Millie, and he's given a very thorough shower by all her maids. Then, he goes to meet the princess, and they end up having a nice date. Millie reveals that she was able to use her powers to see Sync in a competition, back when she was a child. She was impressed by his skills, but Sync is embarrassed because he remembers he had actually lost this competition. The princess cheers him up, and then they decide to go for a walk in the morning. Meanwhile, Dalkin discusses with Roland that she is suspicious about Leo. It turns out that Leo has received a prophecy that she will die in 30 days, and she is doing everything she can to stop it from happening. However, she is left with no other choice but to make a surprising announcement. The next morning, Sync and Millie go for their walk, but her bird beast is a bit too friendly with Sync. The couple reaches the garden, and then our hero decides to play a game of frisbee with his princess. Sync puts on an impressive display of skills to catch the frisbee and throw it back at Millie. Later, Millie tells him that his ring can also transform into a sword. Sync wants to go back home, but he also says that he would happily come back to Flonyard if Millie would summon him. She happily agrees to these conditions, and then he plays with her for a bit. Afterwards, Leo makes a public announcement declaring war on Biscotti. Everyone is confused by this, and even Gall secretly meets our heroes to tell them that he and Godwin are against this fight. Now our hero goes to a redhead named Amelita. She reveals that Leo had raised Millie like her own sister, and they were very close, but suddenly Leo changed her attitude 3 months ago. Now Millie makes an announcement and openly accepts Leo's battle challenge. She discusses her battle plan with her subjects, and then everyone prepares to set out for the big day. The commentary team covers the entire build-up to the fight as it happens. On their way, Godwin scares Gull's mistress trio with talks of demons and ghosts, but maintains that he doesn't believe in them. Dalkin and the other girls tease Sync about his constant touching of Eclair, and it makes them both conscious. The dog and cat armies gather from both ends, and the highly anticipated battle finally begins. The opposition tries their best to attack Sync and Eclair, but all their efforts are laid to waste by our heroes. Yuki and Dalkin also step and show off their skills, while all of it is being covered by the commentary team. Meanwhile, one of Leo's commanders infiltrates the main camp to attack Millie, but gets tricked because the princess turns out to be Riko in disguise. After learning this, Millie senses something is up because Leo would never use such dirty tactics to win her battles. Now, Gull leads his own squad to Millie's castle, but tells them not to take themselves seriously because his heart isn't in this pointless battle. Dalkin continues to dominate against the cat troops, so she is attacked by Leo's late general, Bernard. However, Roland decides that this is a fight that he should accept, so he takes over. The men decides to give it their all, as they charge at each other with full power. Meanwhile, Gaul and his team dominate the Visconti troops, even without operating at their best capacity. Luckily, Rico distracts them long enough with her body for the archery troops to strip the Mistress trio of their clothes. Now Sync shows off his strength by deflecting a missile blow, and even Eclair takes down all her opponents. However, the weather starts to change, and Leo has a troubling vision of a deadly monster that kills Millie in front of her. Our heroes finally invade her mansion, but Leo is actually on the roof, and he challenges them to come at her if they want her swords. However, it is Millie who makes her entry to confront Leo. The princess wants to know what's going on because she and Leo used to be so close before. Meanwhile, the others try to figure a way to reach the top of the roof. The lightning grows worse, so everyone is asked to stop the fighting, but it's too late as a giant monster appears. This demon doesn't care about anyone's lives, so it starts wreaking havoc everywhere. After a lengthy transformation, it becomes the same monster that Leo had seen in her visions. Leo is attacked by the demon, so Millie saves her, but she gets slashed and absorbed. This angers Leo, so she goes savage mode and fiercely battles the beast, but it's of no use as she is easily defeated. Sync and Eclair find Leo and learn what happened to Millie, so they decide to rush to the demon before she is completely absorbed. Now, our hero charges towards the demon, but Eclair has to jump off the turbo glider to give Sync a boost. Our hero gets on top of the monster but is brutally slashed. He refuses to give up and continues with his mission in impressive fashion. Meanwhile, Millie meets a fox mother who says that her fox child was attacked by a demon sword and transformed into this monster centuries ago. She had also gotten absorbed and the monster got sealed off by a holy sword. However, the seal has grown weak, which is why it is out in the open again. The fox mother shows Millie the body of her original child and begs her to kill it, but the princess refuses to allow more pain and suffering. This makes her break out of her captivity, and she hugs Sync, but has no clothes on, so things get awkward. Luckily, both their swords give them some epic armor, which they use to fight the demon. Millie and Sync unleash a legendary saber blast to defeat the demon, and finally take out the evil sword. This releases the fox child, and then Leo fires her spear to crack the evil sword out of Sync's hand. The demon starts to collapse, and our heroes have nowhere to go. But Eclair and Rico come to the rescue on their bird beast. The demon sword is still shown to be alive, so Dalkin and Yuki decide to take it on. They engage in a ferocious exhibition of magic, and finally come out on top by combining their powers. Now that the danger is finally over, Yuki offers to care for the fox child as it belongs to her community. Leo also heals from her injuries and declares that the war is officially over. She proposes a friendlier way to lead her kingdom, and everyone applauds her decision. At night, Roland tells Sync that there are dangers outside the protected world, which is why the kingdoms have friendly battles to keep themselves prepared. There's a celebration now, and everyone has a good time. Gaul and his mistress trio also show up to join in on the fun, but Rico gets a call to visit the academy. Now Leo meets Millie and apologizes for everything she has done so far. Millie is only upset because Leo hid such an important prophecy from her. The girls eventually get emotional, and then it's time for Millie's performance. The princess makes a dramatic appearance and impresses everyone with her silky smooth voice. Thanks to this performance, the soldiers happily head back home so that they can live peaceful lives. Now Rico meets her friends at the academy and learns that Sync can go back home, but he won't be able to return to Flonyard again. On top of that, he will also forget the time he spent over here. Rico goes to tell Sync about this, and she starts to cry over the fear of losing him for good. However, our hero reassures her that all will be well. Millie learns about this later, and is a little sad to bid farewell to her boy toy. The next day, Sync plays a game of frisbee with Millie, and also spars with Eclair for fun. Then he meets Dalkin and Yuki, both of whom are known to have the powers to seal demons. Sync educates himself about these powers, and then he bumps into Gaul. The prince has an arm wrestling match with our hero, but they're interrupted by one of the trio girls. Later, Sync goes for a bath but bumps into a naked Millie again. She doesn't mind him being there, and also, she makes him promise never to forget her. Later, Sync goes to meet Leo, but she's too busy getting some love from Millie. It's finally time for our hero to say goodbye, and he gives a speech in front of everyone. Millie decides to give her lover boy a proper send-off because she doesn't want to forget him. Rico tries her best to find a way to send Sink away with his memories intact, but fails to do so. Sink consoles her and gives her some of his gadgets so that she can remember him fondly. Eclair is chosen to send Sink away, and she tries to act tough in front of him even though she's fighting her feelings. Now, Sink meets Millie for one last chat, and the princess becomes teary-eyed. Even Sink starts to cry and promises never to forget her. Sink starts to travel through the portal, but Millie holds his hand and says she loves him. Sink says the same before he is sent to his world. Now, Becky goes to check up on Sink, and as expected, he isn't able to remember his time at Flonyard. Sink spends some quality time with his family and friends, but senses that something is missing. Now Rico learns that there is still hope for Sink to return, because he has left some items back with Millie. Keeping this in mind, Millie's dog is sent to Sink, with his ring to remind him of his time at Flonyard. This triggers all his memories, and he happily greets Becky to tell her that they should go meet Millie together during their next vacation. Like, share, and subscribe if you want to see Season 2 as well. I'll see you in the next one.